So that is what you were paying for. If you didn't, you can gladly pay us on break. We will take all your money. You can pay us twice if you want to. It's entirely up to you. The choice is yours. So I'm just going to do a little introduction, and then we'll get going. Mousa is a spoken word poet and motivational speaker living in Toronto, Ontario. Having toured actively her whole poetry career, which has been very long and prosperous, last year alone, Mona has booked over 200 shows all over North America. When she's at home, Mona is heavily active in all facets of her community as the founder and director of Feather and Anchor, a talent management agency serving performance artists from the BIPOC and LGBTQ communities. I would like to add this is one of the first agencies that is doing so in Canada, and we were super proud of Mona for doing that. Over the past 10 years, Mona's mission has been to work to empower people to engage in discussion. The mission is about promoting real love, love as an action that we commit to unconditionally. This love is about safe spaces, no matter your religion, social class, gender, or sexual orientation. The mission is to educate and tolerate, no exceptions. Okay. I know I'm against love at this open microphone, but Mona's allowed to bring as much as she wants. So, without further ado, let's give a big warm welcome to Mousa. Three, two, one, breathe!
Hi, Edmonton. How are you? It's funny, I started this agency. I live in Ontario, and the entirety of the artist roster lives in Edmonton. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's been a good journey, and I'm stoked to finally be here. I was supposed to be here in February, and that didn't work out, but here we are today. How are you? We're just gonna get started. So this poem that I'm going to do is by far not my best poem at all. I only ever do it because of the story. It's called Airports. And it's a true story, might I add. Have you ever noticed that in an airport is where you get the most impatient? Like this man standing in front of me who can't seem to keep the line moving. He's texting and walking at a snail's pace. And at this point, I'm having a screaming internal dialogue about this man, and the thing that makes most sense to me in that moment is, of course, this man has never flown before. On a good day, as humans, I'd like to assume that we could be patient with each other, like maybe he's texting his mother, his daughter, or his partner to say, hey, I'm headed out to figure out what it means to love myself. I don't know when I'll be home, so don't wait up. I like to do this. Try to make up people's life stories because it helps me forget that I am not everything I know. As we get to security, I would understand if he felt the hole my impatience burnt through the back of his shirt, and he asks me where I'm going. And when I tell him about my hopscotch tour across Canada, he asks why. I tell him I'm a writer, and he goes to say he is in one too, and in my head I'm like, oh great, another middle-aged white man who writes. He asks me what I write, and when I tell him spoken word poetry, he rants on about how much he respects the art, and in my head I'm like, oh great, another middle-aged white man who thinks he likes poetry, but only the kind that's good in his book, and I go to think, he's the dude that will give everyone at a slam 6.3 if they don't look, sound, or live like him. Have you ever noticed how many assumptions we make about people on a daily basis? Like how in under 10 minutes, I assume this middle-aged man in a life crisis who's on a permanent writer's block from a sure-to-be-breaking novel, who now writes fringe plays that are probably inspired by spoken word poets like Neil Holborn, because slams make him feel young again. At this point, I was knee-deep in the interaction, and my mother taught me to be polite, and I didn't know what to do. So I asked him, have you ever written anything I might have heard of? He stops, gently smiles, and says, sure, Life of Pi. And I was like, Life of Pi? That's about an Indian boy on a boat with a tiger. And this guy's very white named Leanne Martel who lives in Saskatchewan. Who did the poem about you did? Yeah, Saskatchewan, right? So somebody here said they're from Louisiana, and I did this tour across the southern US. We did like a 60-day tour across the southern US. And when you look like me, you don't want to go on a southern US tour a week after Donald Trump has done a primary of the southern US. So this is the only love poem I've ever written. Not the only love poem ever written, but it's the only one that I'll read. It's 3:27 a.m. in Lexington, Kentucky, the night that taught me I am not everything I know. She is 67, headed to a city made of towering skyscrapers and rainstorms for the first time, to find the daughter who ran away to the big city streets, trading rolling green fields and prized horses for New York's big city dreams. And she said to me that she can't blame her, because ain't nothing changes in Kentucky but the weather. And I know this to be true, because when Miss Kentucky Derby sat down next to me, it was obvious that New York sour kisses will never compare to Sunday afternoon dirty South porch rocking chairs, sweet tea, and Mama's apple pie. And she went on to tell me her father had whirling weather vanes and her mother had knees that got weak when it rained. Girl, you too will find your storm chaser. They will have a flagpole straight spine and sunshine clenched in their fists like the heart you asked them not to drop. And more importantly, they will make you feel okay. They will remind you of migratory birds that weren't supposed to be in this town until April. She looked at me and said, darling, I can tell you're hurting, because no stranger to the South comes to Kentucky unless they have a bourbon-craving broken heart. Honey, you could decorate absence however you want, but it's still going to be obvious what's missing. I said, lady, I used to think they were my soulmate, and now they're just a stranger walking around with all of my secrets, and now most days, I sit lonely beneath broken pens, convenience store receipts, and stitch scars on my skin, trying to sort through the things that I believe would keep them, wondering what it is about love that turns humans violent. I say, I'll fight you a lot for a girl who is 5'3" and has a hard time opening most doors because they're too heavy. Try to form a connection with other people when you suffer from an anxiety disorder. I push all the buttons, push them so far out the door because my insides are too messy, because do you like me? Gets pretty annoying the 200th time around, 500th time around, watch them leave because 501 times in less than 365 days is too much. I am too much, except on days when I am not enough, which is most days. So I become a dusty collection of luggage, old train trunks, and I don't love you anymore. She said, though this may be true, she knows Maya Angelou had it right when she asked of the world to have enough courage to trust love one more time, and always one more time. She looked at me and said that when people leave, she's learned the secret. Let them. Because most of the time they have to. Let them walk away and go places. Let them have adventures in the wild without you. Let them travel the world and explore life beyond a horizon that you exist in, and know deep down that though anxiety will have us believe that people always leave, heroes are not qualified by their capacity to stay, but by their decision to return. So I just put out this book. How much is it? It's $10.
Only $10!
And then, so I get bored really easily, even though I don't have like a million things on my plate at any given time. So it's just like, I'm gonna make bracelets to sell with the book, like that come with the book. So I was like, that'll be fun. And I just moved into this new house and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. So I'm gonna bead. And the book is called The Constellations That Built the Pyramids. And that comes from a line in one of my poems I'm going to read about my mom. But I made these bracelets that have the planets on them, because when I researched like planet alignments and pyramids and constellations, there's this really cool article about once every 2,000 or something years, planets align over the pyramids in a certain formation, and it happens so rarely, but the 2 times they could think of in the recent past was December 3rd of 2012 and in 2007, which both those dates line up so importantly with my career and my life. And so it just made sense for this project to have to do with the constellations. And a lot of people who've come to my life talking about constellations, talking about just believing in these things has really changed how I thought, you know. I'm super pessimistic, like, what, like emotion, I'm an emotional robot, I should tell you that right now. But this book was it's a test of vulnerability for me. And so I just want to share it with you all. And so here it is. Anyways, this poem's called Olive. And goddamn, if anyone ever tried to tell you that it is possible to tame an Egyptian woman, you call us crazy, I call us tempered by hot sands. When you meet me, listen carefully, hear me speak. My lips drip of honesty, of surrender, of coriander. On first bite, I know I am stubborn. Olive hit hard, but will linger on your tongue like too much, or just enough melted butter and icing sugar, aftertaste like market sweets. And if you ask me what my secret is, I will say it is the family's. Passed down from my mother's mother's mother. I do not know her name, but I probably bear a striking resemblance of her. You cannot mistake the women in my family as anyone but one of our own. So if this recipe was just another heirloom, We'll pass it on, or I'll try, so if it doesn't taste exactly like home, forgive me. I'll just say, look at my lineage. Forgiveness runs through us like blood cells, like tiny graves, like dignities. My mother embodies this, forms thought patterns like the constellations that have been rumored to have built the pyramids, uses Orion's belt to tie back her hair. Will tell you that death is just another word for resilience. Early on, I learned to let my skin be a demonstration of the political statement that is my bloodline. I never knew much of my mother's motherland. I'm still trying to master fluidity, I'd say. Always knew that I was born of the Nile, of alabaster and raw silk. But frozen red rivers melt to red seas under my touch and freeze back again. I wear this skin over bones like mesh stretched over African drums, so I know there is something in me. It's just that I've yet to find it. So when people ask me where I am from, I will say my mother. She's the first place I call home. I imagine she is what a wise woman meant when she said, I am deliberate and afraid of nothing. When you meet me, listen carefully. Hear me speak. I'll just say, look at my lineage. When you ask us what our secret is, we will say it is the family's. Passed down from our mothers. We do not know her name, but we probably bear a striking resemblance of her. You cannot mistake the women in my family as anyone but one of our own. You'll know us by our humility. Our lips drip of olive oil, of fight, of kamun. And if this recipe was just another heirloom, we'll still pass it on or we'll try. So if it doesn't taste exactly like home, we will not ask your forgiveness. I do a lot of poems about family and my mother most recently, I think in the past few years. And I got asked to do an interview it was around Mother's Day. And this girl sat down, and I just knew this interview was gonna go south. Like I just had a feeling. And then when I got the interview back, like the interview was horrible. Like the shit this woman asked me, like just don't talk to people, don't ask people things like this. And I saw this interview, and I emailed them back, and I was like, this cannot be published. This interview or whatever you want to call it cannot be published for public consumption. And then I sent them this poem, and the email I got back was, I probably should have not tried to test a poet. So there's this poem. It's called A Woman's Word. In an interview, the journalist asked me if I wanted to be a mother one day. As if every woman can or wants to be a mother one day, the journalist asked me what I would name my daughter. And I said on most mornings, I think I'd like the name Indy, because I hope she'd get my wanderlust need for independence. But most nights I settle on the name Miracle. Because my mother taught me to never rule out the improbable. My mother has a relationship with her God so strong that she can swear she has tea time talks with him, tells me she prays for me, and I always want to ask him why he broke my body. My cousin tells me I am not broken. I'd probably name my daughter Resilience, because I come from a long chain of broken, persistent women who refuse to put their broken pieces back together. The journalist asked me what I would teach my daughter, and I wanted to say, I teach my daughter to do her best when the world takes from her something she wasn't ready to give up yet. I wanted to say, I teach my daughter that sometimes nightmares come true, but so do dreams. And honey, you may not know now, but miracles do happen. There's a reason you were named after the unlikely. But what I do say to this journalist is I teach my child to never ask people questions like these. The journalist stops, apologizes profusely, inserts another platitude here, mentions another vague statistic there about how many kids don't have homes, comments again with an obscure generalization about adoption or in vitro, or how there are doctors for these kinds of things. Doesn't forget to end it with some sage advice about how you're so young and those tests don't always get it right the first time around, second time around, third time around. I'd stop the journalist and say, though I talk about my mother at length on stages doesn't mean my goal is to be a mother one day, you still don't get it, do you? And she backtracks and goes to say, she's a feminist, so she knows a woman isn't defined by her child-making capabilities anymore. There are plenty of children who need to be adopted, right? These are not the easiest of times to raise a child anyways, right? Just think of the things you'll never have to worry about, right? Cut the journalist off and say, let me tell you a story. I once worked for a Christian radio station that asked me to MC a pro-life gala. And I almost lost my job when I told them I was pro-black women's lives, if only for the reason that society doesn't give us many choices. I told her that my mom has her God like her heart in her sleeve, that I did not come before she let two go. I tell my boss my mom prays for me every day to a God who laughs at man-made pro-life mandates. He'd say, modern day evangelism has really fucked it up, hey? The journalist looks at me and reassures me that I did the right thing, that pro-life lifers have always made her so angry. I look at the journalist and pose the question that in asking me when I plan to be a mother, what the difference between her and them really is then. She gets upset and says, I'll never tell a woman what to do with her body. And before I leave, I ask, isn't that what you just did?
Oh.
I read that poem to my mom, and she was like, well, guess I have my answer. Love you. My mom's great. My family is great. And if you are a person of color, you understand intergenerational trauma better than anything. And I had a hard time writing this poem, and it just happened one day. It was the hardest thing for me to ever write, and one day it just clicked. And it's called Trauma. My mother will never admit that being born a twin runs in our family. They can see it in the ultrasound every time. They say we don't know which one will survive. When trauma has its umbilical cord wrapped so tightly around your neck, they call it emergency C-section. We call it noose-shaped future, bipolar disorder. We call it identical twin. As per the doctor's suggestion, we announce a birth at the beginning of the week and plan a funeral at the end. The backyard of my mother's heart, a peony cemetery. Ashes of human or trauma or both. In my family, they are one and the same. Our family, well practiced, is never ready for when both survive. My mother cries when the hospital dispatches her, prays to God for forgiveness that her blood wasn't supposed to be as poisonous as the mother's before, cries that she was scared to have to do this, set another place at the dinner table or to tuck trauma in at night. My mother teaches me to love trauma, says be gentle with your sister. At an early age, I started writing poetry. My mother called into the school when my first poem read, the demons inside me say not today, not here, not this. I'm quite good at dealing with my demons, I'd say, until my demons meet theirs. My teacher asks my mom if I have siblings. Suggests she finds me some friends. My teacher suggests to my mom to put me in organized sports. Tells my mother I should get seen. That pills might help us get through this school day or help me sleep at night. When white teachers tell mothers of color like mine how to cure the product of an entire bloodline, our mothers say ultrasounds have always been white and black. Ours more black than white. Our mothers tell these teachers that there's always a plan for this. On the car ride home, my mother, exhausted, cries, why'd you have to tell them all of our secrets? She says, I know you were born death grip hugging trauma. Early on, you gave it a name, an identity. You personified it as best friend sibling rivalry. So when people ask me if I ever wanted another child, I'd say, no, I already have one. They'd say having an only child must be lonely for her. I tell them no. As your mother, I learned to come to grips that I birthed a poet and a metaphor, but we were prepared for this. My mother stops, looks at me and says, all I could ever ask is that my daughter one day be the generation of mother that birthing twins has finally skipped. And one more. This one I don't think I'll ever get tired of doing, this poem. It's called Storms. I did a show with Andrew Gibson in Winnipeg.
Nice.
And, sorry. There's a photo, so that's like my internal screaming dialogue all the time.
I'm keeping a check, I'm sorry.
It's like, you can interrupt all you want. It's better than some of the interruptions I've had during poetry. But I was doing a show with Andrew Gibson, and they go to say in one of their pieces that all living is storm chasing. And I think that stuck with me so much. Like a lot of my poetry, see there's connections to storms and natural disasters and what have you. And so this, I think, best sums up the adventure I've gone on with my family in life. My mother was always a series of earthquakes. Her high tide flooded the church we built in our home. She never mastered the art of swimming, so she'd always say, I taught you how to tread when you were 5 years old, so like when it felt like the waves were taking over and you felt like you were drowning, you'd instinctually trust the water. In the same way, she reminded me that it's not always going to be like this. That everything that feels like it's pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling you under will allow you to float to the surface someday. You're going to be okay. Just open your lungs and breathe. My father was a thunderstorm. His faith shook the house to the core of his heart. I could have swore we lived by the train tracks some days. The kind of hope he was grounded in generated enough electricity to light our neighborhood with promise. When his thunder cracked, I count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, to see how far away he was from the friction in his bones becoming lightning. My parents, who on the best of days may not have had it all together or had all the answers, but were a walking, breathing, screaming example that it's okay to be broken. Growing up, your mother was a natural disaster and your father was a wreck, so I understand your lineage is like my own. I know the storm of your home can never wait for the calm. So you found your own way of filling up the room, peeling back the wallpaper, making the bed a makeshift rowboat. I can see it from the end of the street we grew up on, like a canal. Loneliness pouring from your doors like we forgot to turn off all the faucets. I was born of tornadoes, and you're a basement that was never meant to be a place for safe hiding. There are 1,000 things I've never said to you. So I paste them to the back of my throat, and now when I breathe, it feels like I have an entire ocean in my stomach and an anchor in my chest. You are an earthquake, and my heart will be your San Andreas fault line. So when life sends tremors down your spine and into your lungs, you feel like you are drowning, I will remind you. My father showed me hope, and my mother taught me how to swim, so I know you're going to be okay. Just open your lungs and breathe. Thank you so much, Edmonton.